Everybody, welcome to Ask Dr. Testosterone, starring Dr. George Touliatos. And this week we have a very, very special guest for you. He is the Director of Media Development for Muscle and Fitness, Flex, Muscle and Fitness Hers, and the Olympia Weekend. He is a best-selling author and a master fitness coach. I've known this guy about 25 years or more. Please welcome Frank Sepe. How are you, Frank?
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think we met Ron in 1995, maybe.
You were a giant. I mean, you were a kid. How old were you in 95?
Was I 21, 22?
Probably,
Something like
yeah.
that.
And you were about 270 pounds ripped, I remember.
100% natural.
100% natural. I mean, yeah, you were on every magazine cover. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
thought that was the path you were going to go, pro bodybuilding, all that stuff, and you went a completely different way, and it turned out to be quite successful and the right choice, obviously. But we'll get into it. But
Sure.
let's get to Dr. George here. Dr. George is the one who got this whole ball rolling. He's been
Well,
following
Frank
your
is my
career.
inspiration, and I was reading his column in Muscle Mag in the late 90s, and the fabulous covers that he had in that magazine. And I was reading his column, and he was an inspiration along with Michael Hearn, of course. But I met Frank the first time in Arnold Classic 16. We were chatting on Facebook since 10 years ago, and then I saw him again, Mr. Olympia 2019, and again last December. So he was an inspiration for me because apart from the looks and I told Frank he could easily win the pro card in Europe, easily. I mean, he was 260 ripped, 6'1" or 6'2". And I think you were fifth on the NPC superhero.
North American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you were among the most good-looking bodybuilders in the amateur levels, and it was a huge inspiration. And then the transition to get super lean from 270 ripped, go down 220, was something hard, and I couldn't understand how you make it. But you were more, more of a casual guy with suits, like the Clark Kent style. And mostly, Frank has written eight books, right?
Yeah. 8 books.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he walks the talk and walks the walk, and he's the brains and the looks together, something rare to find. So he inspires many people. He teaches. Also, you were photographer, right?
Yeah, I can go into that story, but yeah, for 12 years, I ran the Metrics digital magazine, and I ran 4 magazines for Nature's Bounty. So instead of paying the photographers every month, I was like, I could do this and bill myself. So I started shooting pretty much most of the Metrics ads, 100 pages of editorial, and then people would come to me like, hey, I would never go out and look for work. They would just come to me, and I started shooting campaigns. I shot a UFC ad, Vibe magazine, like a whole bunch of different things. But then, yeah, it was an interesting transition because when you're used to moving yourself and knowing the angles, and when you have somebody in front of you, I guess it's like when Michael Jordan's son trying to teach him basketball. It's like, that way, move that way. That way. No, put your head up, your chin up, because you think automatically that everybody knows how to model. But yeah, but that was probably for about 14 years. I was shooting, doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and later you were the NPC online spokesman. You took
president of NPC News Online website. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, now you belong. I think you're a friend of Jay Mannion, right? OJ.
Jim Mannion, yeah.
His grandson, yeah.
Oh, Tyler.
Tyler, yeah. And you train in Bev Francis, right?
I do a couple of different gyms. I train at Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym. Steve is one of my best friends, Steve Weinberg.
Actually, I met Steve last December, yeah, and I know he was your best.
Yeah, good guy.
The man you get married with.
My best man of my ex-wife. So yeah, so he was I train there. I train at the barn with Don Saladino, who's
I met Don on the way to LA in the airplane. Yeah.
he trains most of the Avengers, trains Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively. So he has a private gym on his property, and we collaborated on that program for sleeveless workout program, which is
Yeah.
everywhere. Hammer Strength picked it up, Men's Health, everywhere. We do a live muscle and fitness show from there every week. We just had Jacqueline Baker on for a second place Olympia. So we have like a list of people who want to come on because we don't edit it and we just say whatever we want. Our big discussion between sets was diarrhea and whatever. It's not like you lock your scapula and do 3 sets. Make sure it's like, yeah, you know what? Yesterday I did this and I had you know, it's always like real life stuff. Like if you were training with your partner, that's kind of the premise of the show that we don't like. You know, we had Andre Ferguson on, like a bunch of different people, but it's the #1 show on Muscle and Fitness right now, live.
You're also photographed by Per Bernal, and Per told me when I was in LA that he first discovered you and then Mike.
Did he really? The
first photo shoot you in the late 90s, and then Mike.
The first person I shot with was for bodybuilding was Irvin Gelb. Remember him?
Oh, I remember Irv. Yep.
Irv Gelb. And I shot the first photo shoot I did was with Monica Brandt and Marla Duncan in, I think it was a winter LA, 6 a.m. in the water. And the water had to be about 24 degrees. And Marla Duncan and Monica are on my back, and I'm like shaking. You know, when you're cold, George, you can't even bring out any veins. And people are like, you're so lucky. How hot was that? And you're like,
Very cool. Frank, I want to ask you, Frank, you know, at what point you were on that path to become a pro bodybuilder? That was where it looked like you were headed. At what point did you decide, this isn't what I really want to do? I want to do something else? Because, you know, I wonder, what are you, 48, 49 now?
No, 51.
51. Oh, God bless you. I mean, had you pursued that path, I don't know if you'd have health problems by now. I don't know if you'd still be here by now, because I've lost a lot of people that I knew.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have too. So yeah, at what point did you decide pro bodybuilding? I don't think I'm going to do that.
So when I was 13 and I started training, I was really, really, really skinny. And my dad obviously was a narcotics detective. He lifted weights. So I tried to emulate him. And as I got more into it, I started getting Flex and all the magazines and putting the posters on my wall. And I'm like, I want to be a bodybuilder. And like everyone else, I liked Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I trained in my basement. We didn't have much money, but I trained in my basement 3 hours every night. Like, there was no rhyme. You know, when you tell people like you're overtraining? Well, no one told me for 6 years. And I was like, I would do chest, buys, you know, shoulder, chest, buy, like you would do everything. So I wasn't until I was about 20, 21, I was like, I'm going to compete. And I met this nationals over 40 champion, over 50, over 60, over 70, Tony Pandolfo.
Yeah, Tony.
Tony used to train with Dennis Tenorino and Arnold's guys, and took me under his wing. And I had 8 weeks to get ready for the Easterns, I think it was, Eastern USA. And at that time, I was just modeling. And people were like, you can't be a bodybuilder in 8 weeks. I'm like, really? Then I won. And then I actually took 16 weeks to do the Mets, which was the big show, and I won that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to give this a solid year. And that was the only time. I was like, I'm going to do a solid year and go to North America. And I blew up. I think I was like 266, 267 on stage. I'm still 23 years old. And after prejudging, I took a diuretic. When I was online getting ready, it was funny, everyone's lined up backstage. There's a bathroom on the side. We're in Ottawa. By the time it was going on, I kept peeing. So when I'm hitting my poses, I'm like this. You know, cramping and everything. So when I got out, I was dehydrated at 260 something. It was like 30 guys in the class. I was easily the youngest one. Curtis Leffler was behind me. He was like 290 pounds. You know, he's huge. Get on stage. After prejudging, I started cramping up so bad that my individual abs were popping out. You know that thing where you had to hit with the hammer to pop back in? And I was like in so much pain. I looked up, I saw my mom, saw my brother. They were so upset. I was like, I have to seriously think about this, because I'm 260 I'm young, 260 something pounds. I think at night pre-judging I was 270 because I just ate because I knew I was in top 5, but I knew I didn't win. So I was like, I love training. I love always gonna love training to the day I die. But I don't really love putting on the posing trunks and doing the competition. I'm like, I love throwing maximum weight in the gym and the camaraderie, but do I really like posing? Do I really like putting on the Andres Colling posing trunks and stuff? So I was like, I'm gonna take a break. And then I took a break and it was a lifelong break, and then I dropped to like I was probably 314 after that contest. And then I got down to like, I held steady at 280. And then as a fitness model for years, I was 240 to 250, which is classic physique right now. So it was me and Mike O'Hearn, but it was more of like, and then I looked at the climate at that time. You had NASA El Sambadi, Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, and I was like, what would I have to do to go against these guys? I'm like, how much, what is it going to take? How much am I going to put my health? I'm like, I have 100% respect for bodybuilding and everything else, but I'm like, I don't think I could, pull it off. I didn't think I was going to be able to be Mr. Olympia, but I probably could have competed if over 300 pounds easily for my height and frame. But at 270, I still had to fill out more. I still have to. I think in order to be competitive, I have to be 300 pounds.
Was it easy for you to be on the covers, lean, having a 6-pack all year round at 250? Were you dieting hard for that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I could eat I could eat crumb cake and M&Ms all day to maintain that. I mean, like some people have genetics and some people, they take their fluoride out because it makes them retain water during a contest. I was more of like, I love to train. I volume train, George. So I would do, and I know, like, it's just how I train, but I'll do 40, 50 sets of body parts sometimes.
Yeah, but when you say volume, different exercises or many sets of few exercises?
So typically, like yesterday, I did back, and I did the day before I did back. I did 8 exercises, probably 5 to 6 sets per exercise.
And don't you think your muscle glycogen will be depleted with so many sets?
Never has been.
Your muscle glycogen stores, will be depleted with so many sets?
There's common sense, and then there's what you do. Like, like I would never tell, like Johnny Moyer, I'll give you an answer, who's one of the greatest middleweight nationals. Guy was like completely shredded. And then he's sitting at the counter at Bev Francis Gym eating ice cream. What does that mean? I'm like, all common sense says that this guy's eating dairy and this and that, but he's the most shredded person. So I trained with pretty much hundreds of IFBB Pro League bodybuilders. Like I trained when Dorian Yates was doing the Olympia, he would come to Bev Francis Gym. I trained with Dorian. Yes. And at the time, Dorian, we did leg press. I'm like, we're going to do the Mike Menzer routine here. Like, I don't know, what are we going to do? The heavy duty? We wound up doing like 8 sets on the leg press. So it was like, how many working sets, I don't know what you quantify. Then when I went to Club Metrics, I was with Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman, I did about 30, 35 sets of chest. And Ronnie Coleman's on his 5th set of squats, wrapping his knees in the same time frame. So am I going to go up to Ronnie Coleman and say, listen, I don't think you're doing that right, man. You're taking 12 minutes in between sets. You should do what I'm doing. I know you're the greatest bodybuilder of all time, but so there's no rhyme or reason. Whatever works for you. But yes, medical science, I agree with it. But how do you quantify it? How
much time you train? How much time?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always say you can't argue with results. If something works for somebody, diet, training, whatever, you can't argue. It's working for them. So you can't tell Ronnie Coleman or someone. You can tell some guy with 23-inch arms, oh, your form is terrible on bicep curl. Well, his bicep is 5 inches bigger than your bicep. So
you can never aspire. We have, it's funny, and I'm sure you do too, George. Like you get all these, so-called fitness influence trainers who come on live on the Muscle and Fitness and tell Don and I, you guys are swinging the weights when you're doing curls and you're doing this, and you're like, and then you look up their profile and you're like, seriously, dude?
Too much theory, huh? Too much theory.
They got an arm like this.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you saying? it just, people are just, out of their minds. But yeah, whatever, like Ron just said, you can't argue with results.
Yeah.
I saw Ryan, what's his name? Big Ramy. I think he was training with George Farr at the time, and I filmed him at Beb's. And he wasn't training that heavy. And I was talking to George, and George was like, talking about isolating muscles and doing this. And same thing. I remember going into Gold's Venice, Flex, Chris, Charles Glass, and here I am, this, East Coast. I was just talking to Michael Hearn about this on a podcast. Michael Hearn was in the corner, benching 405, and I was deadlifting 635. I said 585, and Mike goes, no, it was 635, and you weren't wearing a belt. Like, he knows Mike has that mind. And they're doing 30-pound leg extensions over there. And I'm like, wait a minute, aren't you supposed to lift really, really heavy all the time? Like, I didn't know, I was 22 years old. So I think, George, the one thing I tell everybody is you can't have an ego if you want to learn. Like, I train with all these people all the time for the show. Like, I train with Andre Ferguson on day, and I'm like, wow, that's a good way to do that. And then train with Darina Wilson, and she's like, I'd pick something up. So I picked something up from everybody that I train with, or maybe I forgot something too, but you can't tell right now, but go to my Instagram. You can only see one vein here, George.
But you know what? In your podcast with Michael Hearn, Mike started the interview by saying, it feels so good lifting heavy, not just for my ego, for my body, because he trains for the connective tissue, for the bones. He goes low reps, 4 to 6. And I don't understand how he does this with 3 plates behind the neck,
Crazy.
I never seen Mike lifting light. Yeah.
Yeah. He's, he's just a freak. Because look, if you take Michael Hearn, like, let's say Michael Hearn, like, whether or not you say he's natural or not,
we don't care about this. It's the result,
Yes, he's doing these things that even if you were like, on max amount of dosage, he's doing these incredible things at his age. It's like, defying the rules of Father Time.
I wanted to ask you about that because we're almost the same age, and when we were kids, a guy over 50 was old. There was like almost nobody that worked out back then, especially at that age. And they certainly looked at the wrinkles, the hair.
Oh, yeah.
They look like grandpas already. I mean, what are some of the advances, that we're all enjoying as far as, if you could talk to people out there, what are some ways that they can make themselves look and feel younger? Because you don't have to give up anymore. People used to give up at 40 and say, that's it, I'm done, I'm old now.
You ever see that thing on TikTok where they get the old actors? I think it was Beverly Hills Cop, and one of the I think it's Taggart, one of the detectives. He looks so old. They're like, he's 38, and you're like, what? He's 38. I think like Archie Bunker at the time was like 50.
No, I think he was in his 40s. And who'd they do a picture? Doc in Back to the Future. What's the actor? Christopher Lloyd.
The doctor.
He was only like 44 when he played that role.
Get the hell out of here, really?
Yes. Yeah, he was 44, 45, something like that. So
that's crazy. It's funny because like when my son, when I was on the sidelines and the fathers would come over, and the father looks like there's a bald fat guy with like whatever, and he's like, we're the same age, and I'm like, ah! We are. Like, it puts it in perspective. You're like, are we? But I'm like, there are a lot of different things that you can do, but we're losing George. Well, there's a lot of different things you can do, Ron, but as far as the training and nutrition and the consistency, that's always going to be key. That's always going to be number one. It's never too late for someone to start. It always takes like a tragic incident, a heart attack, whatever, for people to get started. But obviously nutrition, there's so much great nutritional information out there. Back in the day, there was none. Like you wait 3 months for an article on 70 egg whites and grapefruit to get shredded. So there's a lot of information out there. You have to consider the source. So many different training techniques, peptides. There's a lot of different peptides out there that people are utilizing for skin, for hair, a lot of different things. Obviously, there's a TRT. I think the most important thing now, that the thing has changed is trainers. Like, if you have a trainer and you sign up, if they don't recommend that you get a blood test, and get your see what your levels are, then they're not doing you due justice. Because if you go and you're like, I have no energy, get a trainer like, I have no energy to train. Why is that? And you try to speed up their metabolism by doing HIIT cardio and this type of cardio, but maybe it's some sort of nutritional deficiency that they have that you can't address through training. So the blood test, like I got my blood test, I got like 20 something of blood, and I was deficient in vitamin C. Like, I'm like, yeah, I was making a joke all the time. Like, what do I have, scurvy? Like,
Yeah.
see, and vitamin D, which is common in Italian, like people like vitamin D, whatever. So those things, so they created a pill like for me and my deficiencies instead of going to a nutrition store and just blindly going in and getting stuff. But it's the same thing with like, your testosterone levels too. If you train all day, but if your testosterone levels, I have a friend, he goes, hey man, I just got my testosterone tested. I'm like, what was it? He goes, 3. I go, 300? It's not that bad. He goes, no, 3. I'm like, yeah, so there's a lot of different things that the GHKCU peptide that you use for skin. There's quite a few things that you can use. But I would recommend you go for a blood test to see what's going on inside you. O'Hearn and I are going head to head with our blood tests, and I think in a couple of months.
Yeah.
You also follow a healthy lifestyle. I mean, proper sleep, don't smoke, don't booze, don't sniff, eat organic, okay? And plus the good genetics also.
Yeah, look, I mean, certain things I think are just crazy when they're just like, I have friends who are like, you got to drink alkalized water and you got to do this and this. And I'm like, I'm going to the shop and getting Arcadia 36 bottles for $7, like drinking the water. Like certain things I'm like, I won't, just out of habit, I won't spend $8 on a bottle of water. But yeah, I agree with you. There's so many good things, so many different things out there, but there's also the abuse of it too. Like you have these 50-year-old guys, 45, you see them, Ron, like they haven't trained for like 20 years. Now they come and they see you and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get it big. And they take TRT. The first thing that they do is go on the bench press. Fast forward 6 months later, they're all have slings in their arms or whatever, because they're all ripping chest muscles. They're all doing this. It's like I told Derek Pans, I trained with the 3-time world kickboxing champion. He's been punching and kicking for 35 years. What I did for 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, I may be good, but I will never, ever be at his quality. So if you've been training for 30 years or 40 years, whatever you know and you train, no one's going to come in for 6 months and be like, I'm going to be better than you, Ron, or I'm going to be better than you, George, or I know more than you. And the worst thing you need to, in that 6 months, you got to get your body acclimated to lifting weights. But they go balls to the walls. They go in heavy because they think that's the way. And I've seen probably same thing with jujitsu too. These guys that, with the TRT, it's a fountain of youth, but then they also rip the shit out of their muscles.
Frank, because you've got this presence online and you're educating a lot of people, does it irk you to see, you've got decades and decades of experience, but you're competing for the attention with influencers who might be 20 years old. They got 6 months of training in. They read a couple things online and now they're an expert and they're coaches and they got whole teams of people. I mean, how do you make people understand that there's a difference in the quality of education that you're going to get from someone like yourself versus, a college kid that's just declared themselves an expert?
You can't. You can't. Like, I have respect for George is a doctor. You've been in the industry for 30 something years. Like, you have knowledge, you have practical knowledge. You know what I mean? You've put, if you come up with a routine or you came up with a diet, you've put it to your own use, like, and to see if it worked, or other people that use it, like you've seen it. People don't have any knowledge of that. They just they read it or they hear what they hear and they just repeat it. It's not like, because it's like when I was talking to somebody about protein the other day, and I was like, how much protein do you take in? They're like, I take in 1.5 grams of protein per body pound. I'm like, okay, why? And then this other trainer comes in. She's like, that's too much. I take 0.07, and they're like, it's a debate, but they've never, I don't know. It's just, they never competed. They never Like they don't even look like they eat that
Just
much
by the
protein.
book.
Yeah, it's like the AMA, Medical Association says 0.7, you know, and then, you know, at my time I was taking 550 grams of protein a day when I was competing, you know, half of it I was shitting out.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can't. It's like I think David Spade said it. He's David Spade, the actor. He was like, I wrote a movie, a book, and he's like, I have a podcast and this and that. He goes, but if you know, some attractive person in a bikini or a swimsuit comes on, they'll get way more views than I will. So sometimes people find like if someone's in really good shape, they'll follow them even though they don't know that that person has no idea how they got in shape. It's just genetics or youth. You know what I mean? So they'll take it as, wow, that guy's hot or that girl's hot. Let me just go in there and follow them. And wow, they do, you know, they do toast every morning. I should do that. Like, it's hard. Honestly, I've never changed my philosophy for years. I just kind of, you know, it's always been motivation, proper diet, training, and that's it. All my books are the same way. Consistency, you know, training at least 4 times a week, cardio every day, staying physically active. But, you know, it's the sexy stuff that's going to get people that, you know, to look at it and start following you. You know that.
And you've been on social media, you know, you ran all these companies and you've been on it since the very dawn of it. So
Mhm.
you've had to learn how to adapt and get people's attention that way. So have you figured out ways to do that? Obviously you have, while still getting the right messages across.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I run the Olympia Flex, Muscle Fitness Hers, all that. And then before that, I ran NPC and my own for the last 8 years prior to when I was working with the NPC. Um, I just put pictures of my family up personally and some other stuff, like, you know, and then this last couple of months, last 2 years, I'm sorry, last 2 years, I started really looking, and now I'm up to like 750,000 followers or whatever that may be. But I think the audience that we have here from a bodybuilding perspective, you know, bodybuilding in this industry, is people want to see the really, you know, they want to see that wow factor when it comes to bodybuilding. Like you can go to any bodybuilding show now, and it's like the most popular is always going to be the, you know, the open category for bodybuilding. Now with Chris Bumstead, maybe that'll change because he's just a rock star. But it's like, you know, it's incredible how the open bodybuilding stuff, they want to know how these guys, you know, train. They want to know how they eat. They want to see them in their regular day lifestyle. Like you could put stuff up on social media and think it's going to be a home run, but it never resonates with the crowd. Like, but then you put something up, open bodybuilding is a home run every time you put it up. It always is. Like if you see Nick Walker squatting or you see Big Ramy eating a donut, like that is going to do more than most. It's just incredible how popular people are like, I don't want to be that big, but I'm going to follow them to see what they do. You know what I mean? I got to follow everything that they do. Now, Chris Bumstead, Ramon Dino, all these guys are now changing that because now people looking at their aesthetics and they're like, I want to look like that guy. I want to see what they do. So it's like, I want to see what these crazy, big, freaky guys do. Now I want to look like these. Like, I don't know. It's just, it's very I see that social media is changing a lot too. It's got to be faster. People have no attention span whatsoever. 15 seconds and done. When I used to shoot videos, I remember shooting one for Phil Heath. It was 45-minute workout. Minute 43, YouTube cut, done. People get it. They don't watch these long, you know, 45-minute workouts anymore. So whatever you're putting on social media has got to be quick. And whatever you're trying to message, you're trying to get, put it in the front of the video. Like, because I used to put stuff up for shows, and it'd be like, okay, the universe is at the whatever hotel at 11 o'clock at the Marriott Teaneck, 10 o'clock underneath. What hotel is it at?
Yeah.
what time does it start? You know,
All the
like, you know,
time.
Ron, it's like,
Yeah.
but all these companies, it's original content, exclusive content. It's that also too. Originals, behind the scenes content is really key. But honestly, from a bodybuilding industry, I think the open is always going to be number one. I don't know if you agree or not, but people just like, they stop. You stop. Like, like you scrolling through and all of a sudden you see that picture. I put up a big ramen the other day. You're like, wait a minute, what is that? Holy cow. Like you got to see it. You're not necessarily going to read the caption, but you'll look at the picture, So
yeah, we say, a VIP ticket for the Olympia, it's probably like $1,000 or $2,000 at this point. I don't know.
yeah.
800.
800? Well, George knows. If you're going to fly from Greece or France or something to Vegas or Orlando and pay that much money, who are you probably going to see? It's probably not men's physique. It's probably not bikini. Probably not even classic. Your main goal is to see Rami and Samson and Walker and all these guys. It's the same, the old Arnold thing about going to the zoo. You want to see the elephants, the lions, the tigers, and bears, not the shit you can see in your backyard like a squirrel or a rabbit.
Well,
But
think
the
about
point is, does the show lead to the wrong direction with the with the muscle freaks and the bubble guts and things like that? Is leaving the aesthetic parameter, that as Arnold mentioned. So at the Arnold Classic, he wants the V taper, unlike the Olympia that he doesn't give this regulation. Perhaps that's why we've seen the Phil Heath era that during the number 6 and 7, he could lose it because of the midsection. And then we had Brandon Curry with the V taper, and Rami also had a pretty good midsection in regards to the shoulder width, So what do you think is does size matter, and this will bring more spectators no matter what? And is health a neglected parameter also in the show, in the sport?
You got two different audiences that you're talking about. You're talking about the bodybuilding purists such as yourself and people who have been fans for years who watch us, and then you have the general public who, are coming across. They don't know the criteria and they're just saying these huge guys and they're not, talking about the bubble guts and this and that. But if you look at the last couple Olympias, Rami was pretty decent with his stomach. Hadi Chopin, I never say like Sean Roden, Dexter Jackson, like 2008 Dexter was. So Phil Heath until that, there's nobody really with they're pretty much solid competitors, but I think look, you have guys look at all the guys now who are coming in. They're pretty tall too. So when you're pretty tall, you don't have they're over 6 feet now. Like, what do you got? Like, what's right? Like the short, yeah. You got all these guys coming in that are taller too. But I don't think, like I said, it's two different audiences. Obviously, health is important, but I don't know, is the bubble gut a health issue, or is it more of it aggravates you because they have a bubble gut and it throws off their aesthetics?
Yeah.
Like, you're a bodybuilding purist. I know you, George, you love probably Bumstead, Dino.
No, not at all. I'm a fan of Dorian Yates, of Jay Cutler. I like the size.
Yeah.
I like also beauty, it has to be the whole package.
See, my favorite bodybuilder of all time is Lee Haney.
Yes, exactly.
Lee Haney, I'll never forget that picture when he was on the street in the jeans with the small waist and with the smoke coming up.
Yeah.
I liked, everybody liked Arnold at the time, but I liked him. I liked Phil Heath's physique as well. I thought Phil Heath was incredible. You gotta, people sleep on Phil Heath because you watch Phil Heath, he beat everybody. He beat everybody. All these great bodies that we're talking about, he beat everybody coming up. He was really, phenomenal. And Jay Cutler, without Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler would be 11-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So think about it. So I don't know. And then so who's to say? Like me personally, I like the small waist. I liked Barry DeMay. I liked Lee Haney. Phil Heath's physique. Dorian Yates was just a mass monster. I got to train with him. Like his back was ridiculous. But going backstage at the Olympia, you kind of appreciate all these physiques, like Bonix, tricep just hanging off the back of his arm, and his hamstrings like crazy, and big Rami. It's like everybody has something, but I think I don't think it's going to change as they get bigger. Everything's going to get bigger.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this, because Frank, especially after this last Arnold Classic, people are saying, well, now the judging is swinging toward aesthetics, which the judges judge what's in front of them that day. They don't have
Exactly.
a they don't have a meeting beforehand, like, all right, guys, today we're gonna reward this and not that. But overall, do you think there would be more appeal for the open division if we had more of these Andrew Jack, Simpson, Dauda type physiques, maybe even one of them as Mr. Olympia rather than God bless Hadi Chupan, but he's 5'5" or 5'6", just like a fire hydrant, or we leave that aesthetic component for the fans of the Bumstead. He can represent that perfectly, and then we can still have the mass freaks, the Hadi Chupans.
Yeah, but if you put Hadi Chopin, say you put a couple other bodybuilders there, and you're basing it on a small waist, but Hadi's legs are friggin' huge and shredded, and the other guy's has a high calf, or he doesn't have the sweep, and they turn around and Hadi's back is thick and shredded with spinal erectors popping out, and then the guy next to him's got he's got a tiny waist, but his glutes are hanging off, are soft, and he's got no hamstrings. So you got to judge it all. I was a judge for 18, 19 years. I was an IFBB Pro League judge as well. You judge what's in front of you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you can't just say, oh, and I'm not saying he has a big waist. I'm just saying you can't take the bodybuilder with a slightly bloated waist who's 99% the rest of him is incredible and say, we're going to put him on the side, because in every pose that they put him, he beats somebody except for the ab shot because he can control his gut during it or whatever. I don't know. Like you said, Ryan, you judge what's in front of you at the time, but obviously it's going to be more attractive if you have a guy with a V, like an X frame with a small waist, and he's shredded and a big sweep on his thighs and what have you. I mean, that's Bumstead, that's Bumstead. But the guys coming up now, like the rest of them, they're nothing to sleep on either. They're really good. Dino's awesome. Like I was at the prejudging the Olympia, and with Dino, he was a couple of pounds over, and then he had to lose weight to get on that scale. I think it was 3 or 4 pounds over. Shredded, like beautiful physique, like great physique, So
Yeah, I have to commend you for judging all those years, because I really think it's a thankless job. At the end of the night, like I think the only person who's really happy is the winner and the winner's fans. Everyone else thinks the judges did a terrible job. We're still hearing about the Arnold Classic. It's been over for well over a month, and there's still people crying about Nick Walker should have won, Andrew Jack should have won, Rami should have won. I mean, the judges I think it's the hardest thing in the world when you're at that level, the Olympia and the Arnold Classic, because those guys are phenomenal.
social media too, because like, if you got 4 or 5 million fans, and you come in second, you should have been first. If you're fifth, you should have been fourth. If you're third, you should have been second. Like you go into a show, I saw people like, I don't care how I do. I just came in to compete against myself. Really, dude? I'm like, I'm just here to have fun. I'm like, go to an amusement park if you want to have fun. You're here to win. But then they come in second and they're like, damn it, I should have won. Like what happened to the person? I'm just here for fun. Like when you're in the grasp of it, like, you're like, I should have been first. You can't please everybody at all. And like judges are human too. Like, who knows? But like, think about it. People always say how political things are, but look Hadi beat Rami, Brandon, Rami beat Brandon, like, Roden beat Heath, like and then look at the bikini division. You have a different competitor, Jennifer Dory, she just lost her crown. Like, Sarah just lost the women's physique to Natalia. Like, they're not running it. It's not like 9-time winners anymore. It's like, so whoever's
I honestly think the judging now is so much better than it was, say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I saw some decisions that people used to walk out of there like rioting almost, like they were so upset. I think the judges do a much better job now being fair and impartial. The problem is it's always going to be subjective. It's always opinion. There are standards and there are criteria, but at the end of the day, it's still more like a pageant. It's not like who gets more goals or who gets more points or baskets or something like that.
unless they do a round where they fight each other to the death or something. It's like, it's I think because it's more, you have to be more transparent now with the judges because of social media, because there's so many different photographers and people there. But that's also a problem too, because how many times you see people, George and Ron, like getting ready for a show, like I have too, and they use the filters and they completely shredded, and I go backstage and they're like, "Hey, what's up, Frank?" And I'm like, "The hell happened to that guy?" You know, like, and then they show the pictures where they edit and they, kind of change everything, or they take the worst picture from the lineup and they put it up and they're like, "I should have won." Now with this AI stuff, like they're gonna be able to change everything, voices, and they're gonna have like, I should see. He said I should have won because they'll be able to duplicate your voice, but
Wow, that's
but
scary.
yeah, it's hard. It's more you have to be more transparent now because this. You know what the biggest lie in bodybuilding is right now, which I hate to hear all the time. It's there's not as many fans as it used to be. It's not like it used to be. That's such a lie because you had bodybuilding magazines, which we've all written for and loved,
Yep.
but maximum circulation on them, maybe 100, 200,000. People are putting up videos now with Bumstead who has 10, 15 million followers who are
15.4.
outside the sport. So social media collectively, the IFBB Pro League competitors are in hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
So when did you have, even when Arnold jumped on stage at the Olympia for NBC, you didn't have hundreds of millions of views of these people. So you have all the social media people. I mean, I'll put up a video, get 100, 200,000 views and whatever. Like Iron Man magazine back in the day, they probably cut up 30, 40,000 sold. You know what I mean? Like there's so many more eyes around the world globally too.
And some of the old cranky people like me, I try not to do this. Like, well, they're not real fans. They just follow. They just like Bumstead. They just follow this one person. They don't even understand how the shows are judged. And then I step back and say, I'm actually criticizing the fact that there are more people interested in bodybuilding now. That's ridiculous. Yeah,
You know
it's
what's
like
cool?
go
The
ahead.
cool thing is Jim Mannion, like with the IFBB Pro League, smart. He created categories for everyone. So if you're a men's physique competitor at the NPC level and you're not, busting out squats and you don't have great legs or whatever, you throw a pair of board shorts on and you don't want to be that big or whatever may be. You don't want to put the Speedo on or however you want to compete, do men's physique. Bikini, fitness, women's figure, physique, bodybuilding, classic. Like there's something for everyone. Back in the day, Ron, when we competed, and George, like you go backstage, it was us and the women bodybuilders, and then it was fitness. That was it.
Yeah.
Like show was started at 8, it was over by 10. Now these shows are over at like 2 o'clock in the morning, or they're 5-day shows. So the evolution of the competitive part of this of IFB Pro League has just evolved immensely, and then you have millions and millions of people. And some of these competitors in the NPC, have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers too on an amateur level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's more eyes on this than ever, for good or for bad. But the bodybuilding purists like, it wasn't as good as the golden age,
Yeah, everyone's like that. I think everyone says, everything was better when I was young. Everything was better. It's just human nature.
It was more fun
George,
because we were younger.
yeah. George, a couple more
Ron, do you
questions?
think that posing is a neglected factor in presentation? Could be a game changer in the scoring, posing and presentation. If somebody poses clumsy and lousy, could lose points.
1,000%, George. Like what posing is so important. Obviously, you work out years to compete. You do your pre-contest whole thing, whatever, and you don't practice your posing. You go up there and you look amateuristic. You look terrible. Your body's on flow, and then you can't present your body in the best way. And whenever you're in a comparison, and someone who knows how to pose will beat you every time because they know their body's angles. So when you know your body's angles, when you see one competitor, they're hitting a tricep shot and they're not pulling it back, they're like putting it over. You're like, why is he doing that? Because he knows his body, or he'll hit his quad a certain way or turn his stomach. So I think if you're going to invest in all this money and all this time and everything else, then why the hell aren't you posing? You should be posing. Like when I interview Pro League people, how long do you start posing, for a show? They're like, some 16, 18 weeks out, some pose all year long. Andre Ferguson was posing in front of puddles, he said, and he's posing in his car. He's always posing, always looking for a song to pose to. And I think when you get to the elite level, it's like if you were a football player and you didn't know, if you're a wide receiver and you know how to catch a ball, but you don't know how to block. It's the same thing, man. You got to be a well-rounded competitor, and you're never gonna look at the Olympia, look at Big Ramy. Now, Dennis James, when Big Ramy one told me, he's like, he had Ramy posing all the time. And then when he won the Olympia, it was night and day, because sometimes you fade. If you're not used to like the endurance portion of it, you know as well as I do, George, shake. Oh my God. You'll be like, after a while too, and you got to realize you're at probably your body's at the most vulnerable state when you're on stage. So if you're not used to, if they're comparing you, 7, 8 times, and you're going through the mandatory 7 or 8 times and you're not ready, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. So, and also too, I think too, George, people don't know how to pick their music. You got these like tremendous guys that are coming out to love ballads when people want to. I thought Sonny Schmidt used to do it the best. He used to come out to Thunderstruck.
Yeah, classic.
It's the most muscular. He'd be like, duh, duh. Like it gets you out of your seat. And like Vince Taylor used to hit the robotic stuff. Like it's entertaining. And
do you remember Bo Parrs used to do instrumental things? Nobody poses like Bo Parrs today. Just about the vacuum, is the grace and the poses that flow to each other.
Transitions, yeah, like
yes,
it's honestly a great posing tune. Is beautiful if there was a couple of guys back in the day that were good. Lee Labrada was really good at posing. Labrada was, I think it was the '93 Olympia. He had an amazing posing routine. And then you had people who were just complete trash posers that we won't discuss, but they would never, they would never ever win at that level. They'd be like 4th or 5th, but they just shaking up there, or they couldn't put their back, like they couldn't hit their back fully out. It was always like hunched over. It just looks horrible. But yeah, I think your song should be part of your personality, you know what I mean? And like, you want to entertain the fans. Just don't go out there and like, hit a couple of shots or whatever.
In my country, the prejudging is the 90% of the final results, and at night it's just entertainment for the people, the posing routine. And there are people that pose like monkeys and trying to present some art, and it's totally neglected.
Yeah, you can't have but on the other side, you can't have a guy with a crap physique and come out, pose, and then the guy who has an amazing physique.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I agree with you at that level. There should be some sort of, you should be an elite poser. Like there's Marcus Haley was a good poser. He was really good. And honestly, sometimes these good posers that win the posing award, and you'll see people see them more. You know what I mean? Like sometimes people get lost. You know what I mean? And then when you're a great poser, like, oh wow, he's good. Where do we have him? Where do we have him? Like sometimes you have to get noticed. It takes to get noticed.
I mean, you've been to so many shows, Frank, as have I. When people put no effort in there, you could see they're just making up as they go along, and it's so basic and boring. It's just not fair to the crowd. It's not fair to anybody, because we're sitting there for hours and hours.
Yeah.
When someone comes out and they're a good poser, you finally sit up in your chair. You're like, oh, wow. But everybody should be like that. Even if it's not scored, why wouldn't you want to entertain the crowd, show the poses that showcase your physique off best? It's just such a missed opportunity on the part of so many of these competitors.
Back in the day, it was the Night of Champions. I think when Kevin Levrone won the Night of Champions, that was a great show. You had so many good posers at the time. I think like Andre Munza, like there was just some, and even Dorian Yates when he he was solid, you know what I mean? But he came out like to that, and he hit the shot, and everyone like you get chills, and then he hit the lat spread and turn around, like it's just stuff like that just stays with you, like the Sonny Schmidt thing I was talking about before, the Vince Taylor. Good posing is good posing, man, but it's hard to see, your favorite bodybuilder. If Bumstead came out there and he started shaking and everything else, would he be Chris Bumstead? No. You gotta be, you gotta learn how to pose. I had a guy, he's like, I'm going into the amateur Olympia. And I said, okay, what are you doing? He's like, I'm doing a men's physique. I go, all right. You go, who's helping you with your posing? Nah, you just got to do a front and back. I'm like, oh, Christ. I'm like, he's like, how do I learn how to pose? I'm like, there's this thing called YouTube. You go NPC News Online, or you go to YouTube and you learn how to pose. So he went. I go, did you practice? He goes, I watched it. He goes, I watched it in the hotel. I go, the day before the show? He goes, yeah. And came in 16th. Like, you know what I mean? It's like front and back. And everybody, I think you put your individual spin on everything too. Like Sadiq comes out with his arms crossed, then he hits the side. Andre's like this. Like there's all different ways to, to show your body in the best light. So posing is extremely important. It should definitely be part of the criteria.
Final question, George.
Final question from me.
Yeah.
Regular things like how low you go in carbs and how many meals you have a day. I mean, for the people, and because you're phenomenal, you're 51 and you look 40 the most, let's say.
34.
People want to know these, casual details. What kind of supplements are you using? If you have a cheat meal, things like that.
Yeah. So right now I weighed myself this morning. I weighed 241. I weighed 241 pounds.
You got bigger than last year, I think so. Huh? You got a little bit.
I like I said, I just hurt my bicep, so I can't really flex it. So I'm going for an MRI after this. So it's a little swollen or whatever. But yeah, I got up. So it depends. Like I set goals for myself all the time because I get bored easily. So when I do, and it's usually business driven. So right now I'm doing another book. This will be my 9th, and it's coming out next year. So I'm doing pictures for the book. So I'm getting now I'm starting my cut down. I don't cut down. So it's more of I'll watch what I'm eating now, George. Last summer, I was up to 253 or something like that. I was lifting a little bit heavier. I usually stay around 230 is more. I was staying for those years until summer. So as a result of being 253, I'm 240 now. I've been holding steady. I've been training probably 6 to 7 days a week.
You never get a rest?
No, well now I have to. but I'll do legs on Monday, legs on Tuesday, legs on Wednesday, cardio. But yeah, so I just love to train. I need it for the mental aspect of it too. But as far as eating, I always try to stay around a gram per body pound of what my goal is. So if I'm want to be 230 and I'm 240, I'll eat 230 grams of protein. 240. I don't do whey protein. I don't eat eggs, and I don't eat. I did a blood work. I was allergic to whey protein, eggs, oatmeal,
Wow.
peanut butter. I was like, "Are you telling me what I'm eating for the last 25 years?" He's like, "No, you're allergic to them." The bottom of my stomach had a little I was no matter how hard it was like always a little bloated. And when I stopped eating the whey and everything else, I moved to a plant protein. Within 3 months, it was completely flat with veins and stuff. I was always itchy, had some inflammation from stuff I was eating. So I switched. I eat a lot of salmon. I used, like the Dr. Perricone diet. Remember, I used to eat a lot of salmon. Salmon's good for inflammation. But usually, I'll do a gram carbs. I'm roughly about 250 on carbs, and I do about 20 to 30% fat, good healthy fats. Cheat meals, I don't really, I eat chocolate pretty much every other day. I'll have some sort of chocolate. I'm a chocoholic, but usually I won't eat bad. Like I'm not a salt guy. I won't eat pizza or anything like that, but maybe once a week, something like that, I'll have it. But
What kind of cardio you prefer? What kind of cardio you prefer?
What kind of what?
Cardio.
Cardio? Oh, what got me really lean? As a bodybuilder, I used to do 60 minutes twice a day on the bike, the long duration, low intensity with my Walkman. Remember that? But skipping every 5 seconds. But the best cardio I got down to 290. I had to do an infomercial thing. I was down to 219. Walking. hills and walking outside is great because not only does it give more visual, you know, of what's going on and stuff, but the vitamin D from the sun, the
Low
different
pace or fast pace?
moderate pace, you know, but then there will be hills, George, like there are hills, and I'll do like do 10 sets of 10 hills. I'll add sprints in between,
Oh,
like
internal,
45 minutes to an hour of different types of cardio. But generally, I will do a low intensity, long duration, 5 miles. I'll do 4 or 5 times a week. And then during 2 or 3 of those, I'll do the hill running or the sprints. I can't do cardio in the gym anymore. It's like, you know,
Very outdoors, you know, the fresh air and the oxygen, much better. Yeah.
there's a park here that I go to that I'll train, and it's, you know, phenomenal, like for cardio too. And there's lots of people and this and that. So I can't sit in it, you know, ever since COVID, I can't go to the gym. I can't stay in there anymore.
Wow.
And you never lose your motivation. This is the phenomenal part about you, that for 3 decades, you train like a maniac, you know, you never get bored.
No, different goals, like, you know, getting ready for different things too. And I got a 15-year-old son. So, you know, like he's, you know, he's like, oh, you know, you were a little bit more ripped in this one or whatever. Like he keeps me going too. He's like, you know, this guy C-Bum, he's all over TikTok. I'm like, yeah, no, I know him. He's like, I'm showing videos of, wow, you really do know him. Like Michael Hearn with the memes now, with all those memes on TikTok, like, baby, don't hurt me. He's like, you know, Mike. I'm like, yeah, look, and I'm showing him text and stuff from Mike. He's like, let's do one. I'm like, let's not.
TikTok. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I have a friend who's super duper fitness influencers with millions, and he's like, my son just went on a workout. I go, where'd he get it? He gave it to him. He goes, no, I got it from TikTok.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes. But yeah, George, to answer your question, I like the you know, long duration. I'm not going to do HIIT cardio because you're going to get. I have at a certain age, more HIIT cardio you do, you're more susceptible to injury. I think long-term running, like, you know, marathons and stuff, hips, knees, isn't really good for a 240-pound man over his 50s. So, you know, I'll throw a weight vest on. I'll try to make the walk as difficult as I can within, you know, my own personal means, you know.
I remember Flex Lewis saying that was his preferred the whole time he was Mr. Olympia or 212 Olympia champ. Hill walking, fast walking. I don't think he didn't like going in the gym and sitting on a piece of equipment either. Not too many people do.
Because people, honestly, because when you walk and you do your cardio, I think that's where you use your positive visualization. That's where it should be a alone time. If you go on a treadmill or a bike or whatever, you know, within 2 minutes that someone's going to come down and sit and talk to you and make it about themselves.
Yeah.
How do I lose fat? How do I do this? And you want to be nice, obviously. And I always answer people's questions, but it does take away from your own goals and your own mental process. So I think it's good when, you know, you put your headphones on, you put a hoodie on, just walk.
Well, we'll put your Instagram link in the description. That's where people can get a hold of your books, your online courses, all that good stuff. Anything else you want to promote or other ways people can find you?
No, it's great, man. I appreciate you guys having me on. You know, I talk to George all the time, like on Instagram and Facebook, and we go back, you know, a long time, Ron. So yeah, it's a pleasure talking to you guys. And
great catching up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And you know, I'm so pleased to see. You know, I would have been happy for you had you gone the pro bodybuilding route too, but I think you've made a lot more positive impact on the fitness industry in general with the path that you did take than you would have had you merely just been an athlete up on a stage. So, you know, you've changed a lot of lives doing this, educating and getting people inspired and motivated. So God bless, man. You've done a hell of a job.
Appreciate it. I always say I'm here to inspire, not expire. So like I'm just getting started. So, you know, the fitness industry isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And those who've been in it, you know, and can involve and stay consistent, like myself, O'Hearn, other people like that. I think it's a blessing. It doesn't happen all the time. And, you know, so make the most out of it and try to educate and help people and, you know, pay it forward.
All right, George, thanks for setting this up. This was a great idea. Frank was a great guest. I knew he would be. And that's it. Yeah.
All
So
right.
thanks for coming on the show, Frank. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
let me know.
guys,
Yeah, happy to promote it, and thank you so much.
okay. So guys, if you have any comments, please leave them below. We love your feedback. Of course, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, turn the notification bell on, do all that good stuff. This has been a great episode of Ask Dr. Testosterone with special guest Frank Sepe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey, did you like that video? Smash that like button, subscribe to MD, and please comment down below. Thanks for watching.